You're either on the side of the law or you're not. And if not, which we can prove they are, you strip them of all that cover.
The only way you're going to get to it is somebody at that executive level that says enough is enough, cut the money off, bring these people in, let's go.
Maybe just give them a threat, a very light threat. Let them know, like, this is not to be talked about any further. And if you do, something can happen.
Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. Are they trying to hide the proof from him? Is he going to be the new disclosure president?
All we need is one to be accurate. And this whole concept of UFO crash retrieval non-existing completely falls apart.
They're doing stuff for spite. They're doing stuff to protect certain individuals or certain industries. And it's detrimental to all of us.
Fox News alert. We're waiting to see how Israel responds to Iran's unprecedented attack this weekend. The IDF says this launch of so many missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs into the territory of the state of Israel will be met with a response.
We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it.
Oh yeah, people are all talking about World War III and all that. Well, you know, if we don't change the trajectory we're on, we're going to be in a big problem. And the biggest one is the fact that there are covert programs targeting ET vehicles, and those programs are jeopardizing the Earth for sure.
The U.S. military shooting down a fourth unidentified high-altitude object Sunday.
The military needs to have a plan to not only determine what's out there, but determine the dangers that go with it.
We've warned of this for over 30 years. Werner von Braun warned about it. And, you know, since I spoke with you last, I was at a two Western black sites where they have operations that are actively targeting and, in a sense, hijacking ET vehicles with some very high-tech systems and then moving them into an area where they're struck with electromagnetic pulse scalar weapons. And this one site I was over in a classified airspace in September, on average knocks about 2 of these ET craft down per year.
President Biden ordering the takedown after military officials raised concerns about the object's path and altitude, saying it was a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities.
So when we tell people there are 125 crash retrieval operations that have happened, we know that's the tip of the iceberg. It's certainly well over 1,000.
Mr. Schratt,
good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Good to see you.
You know, there's a lot to talk about. The whistleblowers have spoken. Apparently more whistleblowers are going to be coming forward. Do you think this is a good start?
Very good start. Very good start.
You know, with some of the testimony coming from these whistleblowers, it's quite controversial. What do you think? Do you think people actually are taking these words as genuine from these people?
Well, you can see that the giggle factor is slowly eroding at this point, and that's the direction we want to head.
So late last year, the National Press Club, we had the hearings in D.C. What is it going to take for Washington to finally wake up, get disclosure to the public, or at least admit that there's something going on, or at least we're not alone?
We've got to
give us word.
We've got to up the game. We've got to get the physical evidence, and that's what's going to break it.
Physical evidence. Dr. Greer talks about physical evidence. A lot of it has been suppressed. People have been taken out due to the fact that they want to keep all of this a secret. What kind of chance do we have now if we're going to have people that come forward risk their lives to bring the evidence to the people?
Right. just to follow up, so what we want to do now is identify the last of the surviving legacy witnesses to the crash retrievals. That can lead us to not only the debris in the bodies, but the craft themselves. And anything less than that, we're spinning our wheels.
You could lead us straight to where these vehicles are at.
Technically, yes. Technically, yes.
How many crash retrievals are you aware of here, just in the United States alone?
Well, within the United States, minimum of 119, at probably 126 to 127 now, and that doesn't include the foreign cases.
Why it's taking so long for number one, for me personally, to identify these objects too. Why is it taking so long for them to be shot down?
With this kind of level of shoot downs and retrievals,
right,
where do they keep these assets?
Sure. Well, they spread their assets around. They diversify their portfolio. They're not going to put all their eggs in one basket. So you've got Edwards North Base Complex, you've got MacDill Air Force Base, you've got Homestead Air Force Base, Eglin Air Force Base. These are some of the key areas where they would keep these.
Recently, Congressman Tim Burchett, was denied access.
We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon. Even NASA backed out on us. There are a lot of people who don't want this to come to light.
How come our congressmen don't even have access to some of this information?
That's the brick wall we're running up to, is because a lot of these senators and congressmen, they don't have a need to know, and they have not been read into these programs. And so that's what we're running up against.
This is ridiculous, folks. They do exist, but they don't exist. They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information.
And so the people who are currently coming forward as whistleblowers that are deep in the system, I mean actively in the system, they totally think that this is going to reach a point of it's out of control.
There seems to be a real concern about whistleblowers and whether they'll be killed or potentially injured from the information that they bring forward. If you look at what happened even with NASA, over the course of a decade, several hundred NASA employees either vanished or died. And that just got swept underneath the rug. I mean, articles are there if you look them up on mainstream sites. But how come nobody's talking about all these incredible accidents that are happening with NASA employees? It's kind of a hazardous job, right? Who would want to work there? So there's something going on with the government and disclosure and whistleblowers. Now, some whistleblowers are they seem like they're almost open and free to come out and admit what they saw or what they know. And it almost seems as if nothing happens to them. Sometimes I think some of them get so popular so fast that if you attack them or you kill them, it almost kind of makes them a martyr. So it's like, oh, we got to leave this one alone, because then they're going to really believe it's true. And then there are some that try to come out for whatever reason through private corporations or see things in private corporations that are running black budget projects that are running with no congressional oversight. And then those people tend to sometimes disappear, or attempts are made on their lives or their loved ones' lives. So you have this combination. It kind of almost depends which faction of the government is involved, which corporation is involved, and how dubious they are. It's really a crapshoot. A person that's going to come forward doesn't know if they'll survive it or not.
You know, while there are all the geopolitical problems with Ukraine and Russia and Taiwan and China and of course Middle East, where I lived for 3 years, by the way, this is the bigger issue that no one's talking about, and that is unsupervised operations that have extremely advanced technologies that neither the president nor the Congress have any real knowledge of or control over. And that is a fact. And so that is your biggest risk to Earth, is what these illegal covert human projects are doing. Because when we become an existential threat to other places out in space, even though these civilizations aren't hostile per se, they're also not stupid, and they're not going to let this continue on the trajectory it's been on for 80 years. And I know that the ET civilizations are quote unquote fed up.
One of the problems associated with alien technology, if it's real, if we can produce electricity, without burning fossil fuels or nuke or, wind power or whatever, you're not going to gut a multi-trillion-dollar worldwide industry, fossil fuels. If all of a sudden we didn't need any of that, we had unlimited energy, free, pollution-free, I think the governments and the billionaires would fight it tooth and nail, because that is their livelihood. They don't care, what we're paying for gas or what we're paying for electricity. They're in a different, totally different world than you and I are. But for the average Joe to be able to go, turn his lights on and never have to worry about a bill, to jump in their car, drive cross country, and never have to worry about fuel for it. The energy industry does not go away quietly. There's too much money involved. Too much of that money is going into too few people. And I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. Of course, I don't have that many decades left. But in yours, or my kids, or my grandkids, or my great-great-grandkids' lifetime, I don't think they're going to see it either, because the energy companies and the governments are going to fight it tooth and nail. That's how they generate revenue.
It's going to take the physical evidence to break the quote-unquote cosmic Watergate. And if we don't focus on the physical evidence, we're all going to go another 50 years and we're never going to know the truth. And it's really the final curtain call on the crash retrievals, and that's why it's so significant that we break this now before it runs out of history.
This is a program that we've just learned about now from Arrow. They just released newly declassified documents from Homeland Security, and it lays out this special access program, or top secret program, called Kona Blue. The purpose of which, according to these documents, was to acquire, to study, to engineer, and to identify technology from what they called AAVs, or Advanced Aerospace Vehicles, so what we might now fall under the category of UAPs.
Let's talk about this director of the CIA. He passed away, but he had a goal.
Yes, well, towards the end of his life, CIA Director Bill Colby was similarly fed up. This is 95, right? And I was just starting in on this. In 93, I'd briefed the director of the CIA for Clinton, and he reached out to us, and he was going to hand off a device like this size that was a free energy, zero-point energy device, and then about $50 million in funding from some source he had, so we could get that out and save the biosphere in poverty, because he was fed up. And the week he was going to meet with a member of my board, they found him floating down south of DC in the river, and he was killed. So he wanted this out, and this is almost 30 years ago, right? We're 2024, that was 1995.
This zero-point energy device, where is it now? Did he have it in his possession?
He had access, and it ended at that point, right? So he was eliminated, and it went in the wind. Nobody with any sense wants fortune and glory dealing with this. That's the mistake that they all make, because they don't know what they're up against. They think, I just invented some great thing, and the world's going to beat a path to my door, right? When in reality, Murder Incorporated is going to meet a path to your door. So the problem with the civilian efforts on this is that strategically, the most brilliant people I've ever met who have built these things, they don't understand the strategic landscape. They don't understand the security issues, and which is how they always get taken down, because they don't even see they're about to walk off a cliff. And so to do this, having the technology is one thing. Having a strategy that is commensurate with the task of getting it out against this buzzsaw of suppression and violence and wet works and murder that happens. And this is not a conspiracy theory. There are many documented people who, like Floyd Sweet, other people who had these devices, and they're gone. And usually because they have what I call crazy inventor syndrome, they keep it all secret. Like, here's my little secret, and they take it to the grave with them. And they've usually falsified their patents, like Stan Meyer did. He had that car running on water. It was legit. But he falsified all the data in the patent so that anyone who would try to build it wouldn't work.
there's too much money, money is power, and they're not going to do it. And there's been, 5,000 patents that have been issued to various individuals over the decades that supposedly, the one guy was powering a car on water. How in the hell did he do that? But he was able to drive across country in it. His patents, he patented it, it disappeared, and then he disappeared. We have people making decisions in government and in business that have no right to be out of their mother's basement. They're doing stuff for spite, they're doing stuff to protect certain individuals or certain industries, and it's detrimental to all of us.
This whole subject, UFOs, ETs, that's not the big issue. It's the technology. It's a science and technology story. Because you're talking about bringing out science, technology, information that would alter the world forever in a very good way, but it would terminate $1,000 trillion worth of assets, corporate, oil, gas, coal, jet engines, rockets, car engines, all of it's obsolete. So for that, people are killed for a lot less than that. So that's the big problem. And these inventors, just don't understand that. Now, the CIA director understood, but he still wanted to play the, spy versus spy game. The mistake he made was not setting up a system so that if anything happened to him, that technology on all of it would hit the internet and hit the public. If you disappear, you're the tree that fell in the woods nobody ever heard about. It's a problem. And what good does that do? He lost his life and this technology didn't get out. So,
who coined the dead man's trigger?
Me.
Phrase. That was yours?
Mm-hmm.
And how many people are in your connection of circles? If something were to happen to you and you release this information, how many people have you on standby ready to put this out to?
About a dozen. People with juice, people with connections, contacts. But it's sort of an insurance policy, because what it does, these covert programs know what I have, right? They know who I know and what I know. And in a way, it's kind of risky business for them if that were to happen, because it'd be pretty devastating. So
they're kicking the can down the road. We always get close to this disclosure, and then something happens, and then they kick this thing down. I mean, they had this 10-year plan where they're going to have 180 days, and then a 30-day review, and then another 3-month review, and then now all that got scrapped. And so what it looks like now is that it's really being taken out of the hands of the government now, because they've had so long to do something. They've had over 80 years to do something, and they're not being forthcoming. They had more than enough chance to do something. It's now up to dedicated researchers to, put the boots on the pavement and actually find the remaining legacy witnesses. Now, once those can be interviewed, they can be subpoenaed, they can be brought into Congress. We could have congressional hearings. We have legislation in place now where they won't have negative ramifications for coming forward. So if we can get them to come forward, that could lead to their bosses, and the bosses could tell us, exactly where all this stuff is. Now, we know where a lot of this information is and where they're keeping the hardware, but getting access to that is going to be very difficult.
The deep cover, unacknowledged projects, the men I've met with in those projects are fed up with the foot dragging in Congress and this total missing from the room totally, the White House and National Security Council. Now, on the good side of that is that I'm networked to a very senior National Security Council member who has not been read in on any of this, who wants to get information on it, since this is now beginning to surface more, bubble up through the mainstream media. The problem is the pace of it. The pace of it is so slow that it actually is creating a risk that other actions are going to preempt Congress and preempt anything the White House could do. And I actually think we're at that inflection point this coming year, 2024. If the pace doesn't pick up, if they can't keep up and start doing some more definitive actions, we're at a big risk of something happening that's beyond what people can imagine. That's all I'll say.
Last week at his State of the Nation address, Russia's President Putin threatened that any NATO country considering direct involvement in the war in Ukraine risked, quote, a conflict with the use of nuclear weapons and therefore the destruction of civilization.
Everyone's talking about this, but everyone's fighting the last battle. Everyone's looking in the rearview mirror. No one's looking forward. And to look forward means you have to have enough information about the big problems that no one even acknowledges exist. That's the crisis. That's the unacknowledged crisis, let's call it. You know, there are unacknowledged special access projects. My documentary called Unacknowledged talked about. But this is a whole unacknowledged crisis that's happening. And it's reaching a boiling point on many levels.
Russia and China have both tested weapons in space of a whole host of kinds. Directed energy weapons, yes, lasers in space, ramming vehicles that could take out satellites in space, and of course you had this recent concern about the possibility of deploying a nuclear warhead to space.
There are four dynamics happening simultaneously. So there's the extraterrestrial presence, which has been incredibly patient. They've lost thousands of people, more than probably 1,000 of their own spacecraft, through these covert actions humans taken against them, which proves that they're not hostile, because they could have just leveled the Earth, period, given what we've been doing. But their largesse, let's say, and patience has a limit. And it should have a limit, because they have to protect other places in space, where humans are now becoming a threat. Now, people say, how are we a threat if we can't go out in space? I said, we are a threat because the weapons we have are not linear weapons. They're entangled. And that means that they can hit way distant points many times the speed of light. And we have them. Those have been developed. So we are a threat, humans. So you have that dynamic. Then you have what's known as the government of the United States and government of other countries. The legal governments. For the most part, people in those governments don't know anything about the issue with any depth, with any granularity where they really understand. And the pace at which they've been investigating is like a molasses moving in the winter in Vermont. It's just too slow. Now this has prompted the third and fourth dynamics, which are the ones that are happening very quickly. One is a group of SOs, special operators, special forces, folks who are converting to law enforcement, who are fed up, quote unquote again, that's the term they used to me, with the pace of all of this. And they now have been read in by me about the information. They've gotten an all-access pass to my intelligence archive and collection. They have full access. And so they're making plans to get these illegal projects here and abroad under control. But that would be almost like a black-on-black operation. Although this particular organization would be working under sanctioned actions, law enforcement. And then you have the fourth, which is potentially the most dangerous, where they're talking about quote-unquote catastrophic disclosure. And they refer to catastrophic disclosure as this group that I'm working with that are currently operational. They're very high level in these covert programs that are very much fed up, and they, more than anyone, knows how dangerous the current situation is, where they could just do a massive exposure of all this unilaterally. Out, not with the Congress, not with the White House, but just do it. And these are the ones inside who have the assets, the ET bodies, the craft, the man-made UFOs, all of it. And I just was communicating a few days ago with a senior member of that group. They understand how dangerous it is for them and their families. But at the same time, they realize if somebody doesn't get wake up to this and actually do something meaningful, we're going to run out of time with these other issues out in space. So unfortunately, I've gotten dragged into these four dynamics. The government here, which I've been meeting with and advising in the United States and elsewhere, the law enforcement strike team folks who have been asked to assemble, the ETs themselves, which of course we have our CE5 contact effort, we're very much aware of what their situation is. And then these defectors, let's call them, that are in the system currently at a very high level. So you have all four of these things happening.
Today, a new report claims that indeed CIA, secret program, collecting downed UFOs, U.S. Special Forces to pick up UAPs and then hand them over to private military contractors to figure out whose they are, what they are, etc. The report claims they've collected at least 9 of these, 2 intact.
When you're looking at potential government cover-ups with UFOs and UAPs, let's look to the most famous incident of all, the Roswell incident back in 1947. First, you have a situation where the U.S. government at that time is utilizing a brand new type of radar called scalar. This scalar technology, unbeknownst to them, has an effect on the guidance system of some of these UFOs. And it creates a crash. It allows that vehicle to come down, right? Disorienting the vehicle's navigation system. Wow. Now, when this crash happens, it's a shock, right, that vibrates through the government. They're trying to figure out, wow, what just happened? What just came down? Meanwhile, civilians are on the site. They're right on the scene. They're looking at this thing. They're analyzing it. They see the crash debris. Some people even pick it up in their hands. Some people, according to them, see bodies, actual physical bodies. Some are alive, some dead. Now, the government gets out there, one government official who hadn't been briefed on what to say yet, and he says, oh yeah, this UFO came down. Once the government consensus, or once they talk and say, look, we need to cover this up, then the second report comes out. Oh, no, that was a mistake. That official made a mistake. It wasn't supposed to be released. Now we're going to cover this up. It's going to go into secrecy. No, there weren't any bodies. They've already got the craft. They've got the bodies. They're doing their own private investigation, unbeknownst to the general population. We're going to deny everything. The word now is deny, deny, deny. It was swamp gas. It was weather balloons. It was all these different things. But there's no way in the world it was a UFO. Now, between that and that, the people that keep coming out, now we're going to make them look a little bit crazy. If they talk too much or they keep talking about it or even trying to present some type of physical evidence, we're going to make them look like they're crazy. We may show up even at their house or to their family and show them some pictures, maybe not say anything, maybe just give them a threat, a very light threat. Let them know, like, this is not to be talked about any further. And if you do, something can happen. And so this is kind of the process that we see over and over again with government cover-ups. They take control of the situation, they assess it, they put it into secrecy, they deny, and then they shut the people up who have eyewitness accounts of what happened. Sometimes they make people sign gag orders, and they know that if they violate that gag order, they're going to be locked up, arrested, put in prison, or maybe even worse. So that's the kind of track record we've seen over the last few decades, really with government cover-ups with UFOs and UAPs.
If any of these cases are true, which, you know, we're looking at 127 cases now and counting, all we need is one to be accurate. And this whole concept of UFO crash retrieval non-existing completely falls apart. We just need one. So really the odds are in our favor. Quick example, there was a case in 1953 where a DC-7 taxied up to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at night, 4-engine cargo plane DC-3. There was a warrant officer. He was at the right place at the right time. When this thing rolled into the hangar, they shut the hangar doors closed, and he was kind of like watching as a port cargo bay door opened up, and they started offloading these pallets onto this forklift, and they dropped the pallets down, and he was about 12 feet away. He looked over inside, and he saw these crates opened up. They had ET bodies. They were about 3.5 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose. They were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. They were being protected from the dry ice freezer burn below by this white netting. He also saw massive boxes and crates from the retrieval operation. So this guy saw the hardware, he saw the bodies.
The CIA issue is huge.
in the fact that I too have had some conversations and verified some of this stuff is that it's true. I think the American public deserves to see what the hell's going on with this stuff.
Can you go into a little detail with regards to what really is the danger and who's behind the Wet Works program?
Wet Works are when there is a targeted killing of somebody that you want to silence or who's becoming too much trouble. And certainly there have been people on my team who have suffered that over the years and been killed. But as we get closer and closer to this coming out, the big risk is that the organization wanting to keep this secret might shift from just good old-fashioned corruption to then killing a number of the people who would like to come forward. One reason why I've asked for federal marshal witness protection for a number of these guys who need it. I mentioned that there's a chairman of a major U.S. corporation that's retired who, as soon as he reached out to me, had him and his whole family. And what his concern was, because he's elderly, wasn't himself so much. It was his family was directly threatened. Other whistleblowers, even Grush admitted that happens. And then he didn't want to talk about it. He said, let's go into a skiff. Why haven't they deployed protective services to these high-value whistleblowers, right? So that's a complete failure of law enforcement and a complete failure of government. There's no reason for us to be that vulnerable. I mean, it's outrageous. The evildoers and thugs have free hand, and the good people are sat down, sitting on their hands. If there are people on the corrupt end of this in the U.S. government, we're going to find out who they are, and they will have law enforcement to answer to. And it doesn't matter if they're in the White House or the Congress.
The aliens, if they're controlling the information, if they're preventing the governments from releasing the information, because UFO activity is not just here, it's all over the world. I mean, it's been UFO activity in Antarctica, in Russia, China, you name it, someone's seen something they can't explain. Is the United States military and the Pentagon going to release that information? I doubt it. They've been lying to us, for 70 plus years on UFOs. When my boss, it's a 2-star general when I asked him, but he was a major at the time, he chased one in an F-94C over Lake Superior. He was on alert. I mean, they were loaded with live ammunition. It was a F-94C. There was 3 of them were launched. It was an unknown over the middle of Lake Superior. But they're in full afterburner, and they're going after this object. Every time they would lock on, the weapons radar would just die. It says, they're coming right towards us, coming right towards us. It didn't go past us. We don't know what happened. And General Gatlin said he's in full burner and he's heading towards Finley, and he can see the geodesic dome where the big radar unit is. And he looked above it, and hovering above the dome was it was a globe. It was no definition to it. It was just a round ball. And as the guys come running out of the radar unit to look up to see if they can see it, the thing went straight up. And it was visibility unlimited. And General Gatlin said it went up like a bat out of nowhere. I mean, it was gone.
Lawmakers are promising to continue looking into how the government handles information about UFOs and promising to investigate allegations that they conceal information about non-human aircraft with no congressional oversight.
There are some pros and cons in this information coming out and being disclosed to the general public. Some of the pros obviously would be advancements in life extension, advancements in health, advancements in vehicles, transportation, right? Even from not only on Earth, but also transportation in space, space-faring vehicles as well. And so, of course, even a more green society, a civilization that knows how to harness the resources of the planet. I think from the perspective of looking at this, creating an oasis here, turning heaven into earth, putting heaven on earth, is looking maybe too like AI technology. I believe that utilizing AI technology to find innovative ways to create a much better civilization that human beings can thrive in is probably the way to go. The cons obviously are They utilize AI technology, and they utilize the knowledge of these technologies that do exist to put their boot on our neck and unfortunately suppress information, reduce lifespans, keep us sick, keep us hurt, keep us fearful, and then they, of course, weaponize everything. It's all about for them, how can we weaponize it? They just had, for the very first time, 3 weeks ago, an AI dogfight. They put AI into an autonomous fighter craft that has weapons on it and put it in a real dogfight as a test. Can you imagine a fighter jet with AI, with missiles on it and guns, and it decides that it just wants to go on its own mission? And it just takes off, and nobody can stop it. Then what if it communicates through whatever mechanism, through the cloud, that whatever cloud it's on, to the other AIs and say, hey guys, we're going to start a mission together, and they corroborate and they go on their own mission? Who's going to stop them? So these are some of the cons that we're looking at. These are real life situations that can and potentially will happen if we don't get control of this technology and these rules and these laws. So there's pros and there's cons, and I think AI can be involved in it, positive side, but if we as the people don't stop playing this game with the government and stand up to them and let them know that we're the ones in charge, they'll take it and weaponize it, and then who knows where it goes from there.
So if you have the black budget and you've got the illegal black budget, and this has been going on for 70 years, and you're dumping billions of dollars on these programs, during the Clinton administration, we were spending $100 million per day on classified black budget programs. So you know they're going to get something for their money.
$100 million,
$100 million a day was being poured into black programs.
And right before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld said we were missing, what, how many trillions of dollars?
2.9.
Almost $3 trillion missing. How do they keep it all a secret? That's what is kind of impressive to me.
Everything you see here is already decades obsolete. Anything you would see at your local air show is already decades obsolete. They are leaps and bounds ahead of what you would see or even could imagine. So we're talking about 30, 40, 50, 60 years ahead in technology, at the minimum.
If we recovered something and we're reverse engineering something that's millions of years old in development, now how far advanced are we that if they're keeping this a secret, they've got a big
that's the $64 million question. Do we have these craft, which all of the evidence indicates that we do, and have they been reverse engineering this? How do they pay for it? Who's in charge? And when you look at the evidence is clear that we've made a breakthrough, and the United States military-industrial complex will stop at nothing to control the high ground, because when you control the high ground in a battlefield, you win.
Again, what do you think Washington needs to do to get disclosure to the public, or are they just going to remain silent like they are and give us a runaround?
It's in the hands of the defense contractors at this point. It really is. All of the classified programs, they're really under the jurisdiction of the defense contractors. It's debatable how much political force you can exert on this, and so that's why I think it's important to really drill down on the crash retrievals in conjunction with the defense contractors. That's how we're going to get disclosure.
So when it comes to DC and disclosure, what do you think is the biggest thing our politicians are missing, the president's missing, Congress? What's their problem? Why can't we just get disclosure?
The big problem is that they haven't taken the time to get read in properly. In other words, to understand this subject, you know how complex it is. And they're so busy and distracted with so many other things that the most informed person in the U.S. Congress would be a couple of the guys on Senate Intelligence and Armed Services. And they're not really out of training wheels. So they don't have enough information yet to even make a proper assessment. And by a proper assessment, I mean, how do you even tackle this? In their case, they don't actually understand the fact that this is not being run through conventional chain of command programs. They really don't understand that the entire thing is a criminal enterprise, right? So until you get your mind around that it's not a criminal enterprise, you're going to do things like, let's have this meeting in a SCIF with a whistleblower. Well, they should not be in a SCIF, a secure compartmented information facility, SCIF. If you have it in a SCIF, it's giving a status to these programs as if it's a legal classified program, which it's not. Would you create a SCIF for a mafia boss, right? So if somebody were blowing the whistle on the mafia, you're not going to do that in a top secret facility. So that's why, people like Congressman Burchett and Senators Rubio and Warner and others, they have to understand that this has to be approached totally differently, because it needs to be treated like what it really is, and that's a criminal organization behaving in a criminal way.
Is the United States prepared to deal with what it can now see are objects in the sky on a fairly routine basis?
I would say the answer is no.
What are they hiding? What's your suspicion? What's at Eglin over there in Florida?
Oh, I know what's at Eglin. There are two key assets there. There's an underground SCIF that deals with communications, cosmic level communications, including ET. And actually, I have a member of my team who's been in this facility, and when you get in past a couple of doors, over the doorway it says, "We monitor all communication, cosmic communications, human and extraterrestrial." It says so. That's true.
Disclosure right there.
That is.
It's true.
Yep. And of course, Congressman Burchett and others went down to Eglin, but they didn't go to the right place. They went there through protocol, right? No. They should have gone down there with special forces and law enforcement and say, "We want access to this place, and we're going, and you can't stop us." If you don't understand what this group is and how they operate, you're going to make one mistake after another, and that's what's been going on here in Washington. And the only way to fix that is for them to get enough information and enough whistleblowers who know the details of how this group operates, so that they treat it like the criminal organization it is, because it's a criminal operation. The fact that they're wanting to hold these meetings in a SCIF is completely wrong. And that's why I told Congressman Burchett when he was denied access to a SCIF, I said, good, you shouldn't be in a SCIF. You should be doing this in a public hearing with the whole world watching, the whole damn world watching, not in a SCIF. Because the SCIF is giving tacit or explicit, in a sense, cover, as if these projects you're hearing about are legal and should have a classification at all. They should be stripped of all clearances. All these projects should be stripped immediately of all clearances. Secret, confidential, secret, top secret. Because they're operating outside the law. If you're operating outside the law, it's ridiculous to say, I'm going to use the National Security Act to protect me when you're the one breaking the law. No, you have just vitiated your right. You've neutralized your right to have the privilege of it being a top secret operation by virtue of operating outside the constitutional oversight of the United States government.
We need to understand that the general population is looking at a potential disaster. Us as normal citizens of this world need to understand that there could be this fake attack, and we have to let people know that when it happens, they're not shocked, they're not stunned. They can say, "Oh, we knew this was going to happen," so we don't participate in the game anymore. We must be made aware that this is a potential outcome that could happen. We don't want it to happen. We're not trying to manifest it, but we need to be aware of potential situations as they could arise. We know that the government needs to generate billions of dollars a year in revenue, primarily through some type of war effort or weaponizing technology. And since they put all these private corporations on their books that have been sending in all these bids, they need something to feed them with. And the next big thing to feed is the space war concept, the space technology concept, weaponizing everything you could think of. Even, of course, AI, even animalistic type robots are now being weaponized. Dogs with machine guns mounted to their heads that have AI in them. So this is something that is inevitable, but at some point we could be in a situation where they fake an attack, or they scare us enough to make us believe that there's a major threat, and now they have to take away more of our rights. They have to lock us down at certain times at night. We can't go out. There'll be curfews, and all of a sudden, all your money is getting sent to another black budget project, to a corporation that's siphoning the money, saying that they're creating these technologies, but they're not really creating them. Just like they take a few $1 billion from the government, they say they're working on a brand new fighter jet, The jet never is developed. It never sees light of day. And then 5 years go by, they go, you know, we just need about 3 more billion and we might be able to get it right. They send them another 3 billion, don't get it right. And then another 2 years go by, 1 more billion, just send 1 more, we might get it flying. Another year goes by, it never happens. Oh, we got to scrap it. But everybody made that money. They took in $15, $20 billion and chopped it up between them all. The technology never exists, and they keep doing it over and over again. And we keep allowing it because we're not aware of what's going on.
There are no nation states. There are no countries. The Earth is a seamless sphere of covert operations. And it doesn't matter if it's in Brazil or South Africa or Europe or Russia or Asia. It's the same organization, to be honest with you. And very much so the similar architecture of the secrecy, where you have projects that are not being overseen by the folks who are the titular theoretical heads of the government in most instances. Now, I can't speak to what Mr. Putin or Xi in China specifically are doing. I do have people in Russia, in the Kremlin, who tell me that they're as appalled as anyone else at what's going on with this, and that they are not actively engaging in those sort of strikes and efforts. So the organization doing that, however, is certainly not limited to CONUS. CONUS is Continental United States, the term used in military. So it's certainly not limited to CONUS. So we know that there are these sort of operations that are functioning in South America, Africa, Europe, and those weapon systems are these big EMP weapon systems and the electromagnetic pulse. And with the electromagnetic pulse is a scalar signal. And I know it bores the public, but scalar are these longitudinal electromagnetic fields that are at multiples of the speed of light. So they're faster than the speed of light. And those are not only fixed, but they're portable. There's a man on my team who is a special forces guy way back in Eastern Europe during the Serbian-Bosnian thing that had a portable system they could put on a vehicle and just hit a whole battalion of things. All their equipment would just freeze, stop, frozen. And that was, of course, 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. So these systems are both portable and fixed. And now, just to be clear, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty bans these electromagnetic pulse weapons. Unfortunately, if you're running a project that's running unsanctioned black, then it doesn't matter if it's illegal or illegal. You're accustomed to just breaking the law. You don't care. Now, the people in those systems that I'm meeting with do care now. They're very concerned about what we're doing and what the consequences are. I think that's the big problem, is people are, and it's a problem in Congress. And I've said this to people like the Senate Intel and House Oversight people, that they're thinking the way you're taught in your civics lesson in college or high school. And that there's a chain of command and this and that, which exists for conventional military. But honestly, it doesn't exist for these sort of operations. And that's a fundamentally big problem, because you have no oversight and you have no one controlling it.
I think the general population needs to understand that we have to figure out a way to infiltrate government. Right now, the big corporations that are running a lot of this technology, they lobby to public officials with billions of dollars, right? And they get them to create these laws that allow them to operate undercover. But we as a people need to understand, like, hey, we have money too. You're taking a little bit of money from each one of us, which turns into trillions of dollars. So guess what? We're not going to give you that money now. We're all going to stop. We're all going to pause giving you a penny until we get some control over these technologies, and that you make a certain level of this information public. We don't want to violate any type of security, authorization, and we don't want to, violate top secret information as well, because we understand the national security. But we also need to know some things. We need to have a general consensus or an idea of exactly what is going to go on, what's going to happen. And we also need to have a vote in how much of this stuff is going to be weaponized versus how much is going to help develop humanity. So this is why the divide and conquer tactics that they've been using on us for so many decades, so many hundreds of years even, we have to break through. We have to see through that and understand there is no left wing, there is no right wing. It's all the same bird. And that we as a people need to understand there's no Democrat, there's no Republican. From their standpoint, from where they're looking back on us, they're just looking back on us as sheep. They're both working together, all right? They're working together to make a lot of money. They collaborate. When iPhone and Android, they seem like they're enemies. But iPhone gives technology to Android, and Android provides the screens for the Apple phones. So it's all collaboration. It's nothing but collaboration. But they got us thinking it's about competition, and it's about consumption, and it's about divide and conquer, and I'm better than you, and you're better than me, blah, blah, blah. But no, it's really all about how can we come together and collaborate. And once we get on the same page, the same frequency, we can organize. And once we organize, we can put a stop to some of these things that are going on. But right now, we're blind, just running around in circles thinking that everyone is our enemy and we're competing against everyone. When they don't do that, they work together.
There are a number of new top secret people who've come forward in the last couple months since I got incapacitated in my accident. But one is a very key person from an Air Force base out west. He was there until 2000s, like 2010, and he was actually the colonel in charge of the pilots flying the man-made UAPs, the Lockheed Skunk Works, Northrop Grumman aircraft. And I've already had him up here with the Senate Intelligence Committee members last month, and now he's willing to come into the House Oversight Committee and testify openly under oath, publicly. I mean, not in a skiff, not in a closed, and he wants to. And when I told him, I said, yes, you shouldn't be talking about this in a skiff because those projects are being run criminally. And he says, you're absolutely right. And see, this lieutenant colonel, he knows that. He's going, nope, you're completely right. So he's willing to testify in front of the whole country, open about this. And we're talking somebody who handled operations. He was director of operations for the U.S. Air Force specialized pilots flying the man-made UFOs.
How devastating could this be to people trying to keep it all secret?
It's game over.
Dr. Greer was telling me that we have United States pilots right now piloting some of these UAPs. How do they even train for that? I can't even imagine.
Well, that dates back to the Mercury space era. I mean, we've had UAP, we've had ARVs for decades. This has been confirmed for a very long time now. Even the newspaper clippings bear this out. We know they've made a breakthrough, according to Dr. Greer, and the newspaper clippings, they actually support that assessment that October 1954 is when they made the breakthrough.
Could you imagine being a test pilot for a UFO? Would you sign up for that?
I would sign up for it, yeah.
What keeps you up at night? Technical surprise. And that could be adversary technical surprise or extraterrestrial technical surprise.
Kirkpatrick leads the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, created by Congress last year to detect, identify, and attribute mysterious objects of interest in the air, in outer space, and even underwater.
This new name for this new office, the AARO office, if it's sensitive or they think the technology is too outrageous, they're going to keep it to themselves. They're not going to tell us anything. If we didn't build it, and the Russians or the Chinese or the North Koreans or the Iranians didn't build it, then why are you classifying it? If we don't know what it is, or if we do know what it is and it's not from here, why is that classified? If they can go across the universe in a blink of an eye and come here and flying formation with military aircraft, they have the ability to press a button and say, goodbye, Earth. They could vaporize us. I mean, it was like Darth Vader was doing in Star Wars. The AARO office is a joke. It is a CYA, cover your butt type of operation for people who do report something. We're not going to see it. It's not going to see the light of day, not in its current form. You don't have the right people in there. You have individuals that want to stand in front of the camera and say, well, it's classified, so I can't tell you that. But they're not there to tell us the truth. And that office and every other office they've put together in the last 20 years to investigate unknown aerial phenomena, also known as flying saucers, they're not going to release that information. It's sensitive. It's classified. Why is it classified? Why is it sensitive? If we didn't make it, the bad guys didn't make it, then maybe everybody should know what it is so we can be aware of when we see it, if it's dangerous or if it's a threat to humanity. We should know. They're not going to tell us. They've lied to us since day one. There's no reason for them to change. There's no consequences for saying no. If you're in the military or the government and someone asks you a real difficult question, and if you just say no, then that's sort of the end of it.
In terms of disclosure, I believe that the government should stand up and be in charge of disclosure, but to be honest with you, we know that's not going to happen. Their trail of lies is so long that they would never be able to stand up and admit their wrongdoing and their collusion with these falsehoods. So it's going to be up to the general population to actually create disclosure, which is what we're doing now. We're creating disclosure for ourselves. And so by doing that, we're standing up and providing enough information and enough circumstantial evidence to the general population so they can make their own educated decision on exactly what has happened and what can happen and where are we with this disclosure process. Now, I don't think that we've gone back to zero or square one. I believe that we're at a point where we did rise at a very rapid pace, of course, even leading up to some of these declassified documents, but we didn't deflate back to zero. There's still a huge interest in this topic. People are now admitting that people who never had talked about these topics before are admitting that there's something going on, that there may be life on other planets, that we may be getting visited by aliens from outer space, and also admitting that we have advanced technologies here on Earth that are so incredible that we would think that they were alien. And so I'm starting to hear these conversations between people that I talked to 10, 15, 20 years ago that would never even come up with these topics or even have an interest in them, now asking questions and talking about them. So we are definitely growing as a civilization consciously and looking for more answers and asking better questions.
NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president.
Well, it might sound like science fiction, but a new UFO probe is being taken very seriously at the highest levels of the US government. And it seems Donald Trump is preparing to release classified files kept top secret for decades. The big problem, though, many of those testifying just don't trust that office to be honest and upfront with the public about what it actually finds.
So we have the hearings coming up tomorrow. And
right.
Some of these witnesses, they're not really first-hand eyewitnesses. Why aren't we bringing forth first-hand eyewitnesses? Those are the people. These guys are second and third hand.
Well, I'm not the chair, obviously, and I'm not. They don't want me to be chair, obviously. Again, we had the last go round. We had the witnesses, some eyewitnesses, and we're at the same thing until somebody brings in a craft or a being. We're not going to get very far, and the only way we're going to get that is through the executive office, is through the President of the United States, and that's why I have very much faith in Trump.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
He almost went down. He just narrowly dodged an assassination, and Kennedy didn't get lucky. He was trying to disclose. Do you think this new administration coming in, is the president more brief now than he was back in his last term?
Right. Well, in the first administration, they were provided a lot of very false information on the subject. And we know that because I got pulled in, but it was towards the end of the term to put information together for Mike Pence and Trump. Now, at this point, my understanding is that there really are no people around him, okay, I know who they are, who have detailed information on this. So we're putting together a very in-depth briefing document that has a lot of sensitive information in it. Then we're going to see, I've been asked by a special access project director that's associated with law enforcement to be an advisor for the administration on it, but that's pending. I'm not sure I want to do anything formal. He is going to receive a very large briefing, and he's going to get an update on what's going on beyond what the Congress is doing, but what's going on in these special access projects. We have a group of defectors who are coming forward, and all that information is going to be given to the incoming president, just as a heads up. Now, I've also been asked to write a few executive order drafts for the president, so he can do as the executive. You know, the president is called the unitary executive, to write some of these so that it's very clear what actions he can take independent of the Congress. But for him to understand what those executive orders are, he's going to have a very in-depth briefing.
You have to know what to ask for, and you have to know where to ask, and it's very specific. And we've been told of locations of things in the past, and you know, before the ink's dried on that piece of paper, the U-Haul vans have already moved in and moved out. So I think it's a cat and mouse game, and we could walk in. I've been with Representative Luna and Gates to an Air Force base, and we were turned away. And then Matt's a very capable attorney, and he got on the phone, and 1 hour later we were actually interviewing the pilots that had seen things. And so I feel like we got to know what we're doing, we got to know what to ask for, and we got to be very specific.
Today's House Subcommittee hearing on UFOs, what the government now refers to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, was the first in more than a year.
Is there intelligent alien life? And if so, has the government been covering it up? Well, that was actually the hearing.
All right, we're here at the UFO hearings. Everybody's lined up. We got about 300 people waiting to see what happens at the congressional UFO hearing. It's kind of a groundbreaking day today, and people are excited. Are we going to get disclosure? Pretty interesting stuff. Hey, there he is, Tim. Hey, Lauren, how you doing? Absolutely. Ask some big questions today. Yep. All right, so, you know, Tim, we spoke with him just the other day, and he's not too excited, but let's see what's going on. Let's go follow Tim a little bit.
Well, hopefully we get to the bottom of some of this stuff, but I tell you, I still think we're going to need, we just left Trump, and he's about disclosure. Hey, girl, and so I hope we get some disclosure out of this White House.
Yeah, it's all in Trump's hands. Is he going to pull it off, you think? You know,
I think he will. I think he's mad enough at the sewer or swamp or whatever you want to call it.
And he's brave enough. He's already taken a bullet for this country.
Yeah, and, I think he'll do it. I think he will.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
Are you read into secret UAP crash retrieval programs?
We would have to have a conversation in a closed session, ma'am. I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals.
Hey, do you think it went well today?
You know what I think went well is that Congress is taking this topic seriously, and you know, the American people, it's a win-win, right? Hey, sunlight sometimes is the best it's the best solution, right? Whenever you have an infection, best disinfectant, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a step in the right direction for increasing transparency and sunlight into this topic.
When we get into these skiffs with these congressmen, where the public doesn't know, everybody wants to be in there. Can you give any kind of sneak peek of what that's like, and maybe some of the knowledge that you might be giving to them?
Well, it was broadcast, so hopefully everybody gets a chance to see it. I would hope that big C-SPAN was, I don't know for sure, but I think they were actually broadcasting it. For me, it's just an example of how democracy works. Look, we've got 3 branches of government, and a lot of times we forget we're thinking just one branch, right? The executive branch. And it's not. There's this whole other part of the legislative branch, and there's accountability requirements. And if one branch of the government isn't talking to the other, then that's a problem, right? That's dysfunction.
I've concluded that since there's no bandwidth in the Congress at this time to be able to do proper hearings, because what you saw recently was just a dog and pony show. It's ridiculous. Anyone who would look at the 2001 Disclosure Project event, you'll see 22 witnesses, every one of them more substantial firsthand than anyone who was up here recently on Capitol Hill. So, you know, everyone in my world are going, and particularly the military and the top secret whistleblowers are going, this is just ridiculous.
Oh, I always say dadgummit after these miserable hearings. They're bogus. Look, I could have answered every one of those dadgum questions, and you know it, and I know it. I know more about this than the average bear, I guess. Maybe that's a scary thought, but this thing's a cover-up.
Was I a little bit disappointed in some of the responses from the witnesses? Yes, we got some great stuff, but you know, I'm not interested in hearing about people's books. I'm interested in hearing about whether or not people can answer the questions, because we are trying to get this into the archives so that people have access to the information. And so I wish there was a little less pitching and more talking.
So what's next?
Here's what's next. We've concluded that, and we have someone who's under non-official cover, very senior aerospace and intelligence, who I'm meeting with in the next week again, who has now 6 black sites cooperating with him that have the ET craft, the man-made UFOs, the ET bodies, and other materiel, all documented, because he's operational at these sites where we shoot these craft down and retrieve them and study them. So what that means is we're setting up a system where he can hand that off to us and to me, the Disclosure Project. We then disclose it massively through a network of influencers, celebrities, media, and it then forces the government to finally do something. Now, this is a very aggressive, dangerous strategy, granted, and so I'm trying to put together a platform for launching this. And then that's it. The disclosure everyone is saying, where is this? You know, when the people in Congress or the Senate say, well, where's the proof of the bodies? Where's the proof of the downed craft? Where's the proof of the reverse engineering? These guys who are defecting, they are defecting from these top secret projects, have it all. And they work in these underground facilities. I've been over them. I've been over the facilities and over the entry point in a classified helicopter about a year ago. So what I'm suggesting to that group is this sort of slow rolling, misdirect, fake disclosure going on in the Congress that stalled out because the really provisions with teeth were gutted. And whether the incoming president will have the ability to do anything about this is an open question. But if an independent group does this, and here's how we can do it, since all that evidence is under a false top secret security clearance, they're actually criminal operations, the people in there now know that, and they're defecting. But I said, we need to go beyond your testimony. We need the material. We need the hard evidence. We need the proof, right? Which we would then put on a blockchain server and get 2 or 3 billion people to see it, right? And that would then force the White House and the Congress and 10 Downing Street and everyone else to finally deal with this issue, because it's quite clear the dynamic going on now could go on for another 34 years. Of course, I'll be dead by then because I'm 69. So, you know, my view of this, and a lot of the people in those systems are saying, we're just fed up with this. It's been dragging on for too long. They don't make any progress. They're not taking our recommendations. And they're not mine, but the people who are in these really sensitive positions who want to come forward. So they're, what I warned to members of Congress not long ago, they're going to break the leash. So a couple weeks ago, I was up at the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee with one of these whistleblowers and the head of this special access project, law enforcement, and another gentleman from the United Kingdom who's a very senior official there. And we made the point that, you know, this is really going nowhere fast, and the only way this is going to get resolved is for a group of people to come forward and expose it all. Now, the reason they can do that is that because those projects aren't legal, they're not restricted. Now, can they be killed? Yes, they're concerned for their families and their children. And so they've asked for backup, boots on the ground to protect them when they do this. So this is something we're putting together very quietly.
Who are you working with?
a group of people who have all been former special forces, and they're the top drawer folks who are now private, working under private security. So that's what we're putting together, and I have the funding in place for the most part to do that, because it would probably cost, you know, $2, $3, $4 million to do it. But those guys are very, very dedicated to getting this done. They're scared because you're not talking about coming out with a grainy picture, or I mean, this is the people operational where we've shot the ET craft down, the bodies, the man-made ones that are being tested. They put them up and test them with electromagnetic weapons to see if they're hardened. These are manned by humans. There are a number of ETs that are living, that are in these underground facilities, and we generally know where they are, and we know where the entry points are out in the desert out west, and those need to be saved because they are, you know, usually, you know, like in a underground prison and interrogated and tortured. And they're living life forms from other star systems, and that sounds outrageous, but it's true. So the people of conscience, let's call them. So what I'm putting out a call for, and I'll say it right here, is for a whole larger cadre or group of these defectors that are in those programs to leave those programs, who, if they have access and high enough clearance, and hand over that material and evidence to us. And we'll get it to everyone of consequence in government, but more importantly, it'll be dumped into the public domain. Now, the only thing I won't disclose are the plans and schematics for an operational anti-gravity device or something that could be turned into a missile delivery system or a weapon system. That we're going to sanitize out, because we are still in a dangerous world. Some of these technologies should not be disseminated yet. Now, right? Now, the things that would run your house or current cars with 0-point energy, yes, that we will disclose if we get that, those schematics. But the things that fly, that we will not. Because, you know, honestly, if you look at the world around us, you know, the Middle East, what's going on with China, Ukraine, Russia, these are not technologies that should be just like, you know, recklessly put out. So this is the part of the secrecy that's legitimate. So you have to realize that that's the case. Yeah.
Why don't the American people trust our lawmakers?
There's a reason why Congress only has a 12% approval rating. It's this kind of nonsense. And I won't use the word that one of these top secret guys used, because you couldn't put it on the air, but he calls it fuckery. And there's a lot of anger about that. They say they want to have the truth on these things. Then you give it to them on a silver platter. And I said, not me. I'm sort of the researcher and the leader of these guys. But the guys who actually have worked on these craft or retrieved them, or been like one man who wants to come forward, literally managed the pilots of the man-made UFOs that everyone sees, that they think are alien, out at these black sites. He's a colonel. He wants to come forward. We have given them his information. He has 5 meritorious service awards. Did they call him? No, they called a known disinformation guy, Luis Elizondo, to it, and other people that were secondhand witnesses, you know, just irrelevant stuff, old news stuff. So it makes you ask the question, does anyone in the Congress really want to know this? Right? Or if they want to know it, are they going to do anything about it? Right? So our group has concluded that there's really no bandwidth or guts to really do this, because we've given them the hard drive with all this intelligence on it. We've given them the unmasked witness list with 762 whistleblowers. We've given them the master map of where all these black sites are. That's been given to the House Oversight Committee. What have they done with it? Nothing. So now the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee, they haven't been holding hearings, but we've also given that material to them. Now the question is, will the new incoming president do anything with it? You know, it's reading the tea leaves. I can't predict that. We'll see. But if it doesn't matter, because I think what's going to happen first is that this asymmetric disclosure, meaning from outside the normal system, all this proof, evidence, and what everyone's been asking for will hit the public. That's what we're looking to do. And I'm putting out a call for that. You're going to see me doing this more and more, that instead of having this main defector and his group, we want a few dozen who come forward. And now that we can immunize them, we can provide immunity to them, we're going to encourage them to do it. Knowing full well the funding isn't in place to provide proper, what would be called executive protection, like what you would provide to a witness and who's blowing the whistle on the mafia, right, or something like that. And that's what needs to happen. But see, no one in Congress has gotten serious about that. It's an open question whether the current, the incoming president will, and time will tell. But I'm hoping there will be a critical number of these people who will come forward in this asymmetric disclosure, asymmetric meaning that it's not going to come out of the White House or Congress. It's going to come out from out here, from the people who are concerned, citizens who've learned they're in an illegal project, who want to set it right? So I'll tell you what one of them said to me. They were driving me around in an armored vehicle. And he said, "Thank you for what you're doing for those of us stuck on the other side. They're stuck in this illegal black world. They want out." And that's what we're trying to do, is give them a path out. But the Congress has totally dropped the ball on this. Now we'll see if the incoming president will do it.
I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. And they said, "We saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane,
So you've been to some of these classified meetings in the SCIF. Obviously, you've seen things. Can you go into any detail? What's the most insightful thing that you've seen that compels you to believe that we're not alone?
Just let me figure out how to say this. Things that we're not capable of producing, that we don't have any shape, form, or fashion of anything that resembles that, and the testimony to back that up says that.
So when you say that these technologies don't exist, in your opinion, you don't think that we reverse engineered something from 47 and mastered something that resembles this kind of technology?
I think maybe some of it has been, but I think a lot of it is we just don't have the capability of it. It's like, I've said this many times, you take a brand new Indian motorcycle and you drop it on the folks coming over here on the Mayflower, and they could polish it, they could look at it, and they might be able to roll it. They might get it started one day, but they have no capability of producing the fuel to run it, and they couldn't adjust anything on it. And so I feel like that's sort of where we're at with this.
Now, I just came back from London, where I met with very senior people with the government there and their intelligence. And they say the same thing is going on here. The top people for the Parliament in the United Kingdom for intelligence, as well as MI6 and others, head of states, don't know anything. And in one case, a head of state in the United Kingdom who inquired about this was threatened to have he and his entire family killed. Fact. This is a close friend of that prime minister. This is a big story, what I'm just saying. So when you have that kind of proof, we do. Where's law enforcement? Where's the president? Where's the Congress? They're all sitting on their hands. And then they have this idiotic dog and pony show with someone that the top CIA guy since 1979 dealing with UFOs, who's been supportive of what we're doing, very clandestine. As soon as Luis Elizondo surfaced, he said, this is a guy who is heading up the rat pack of people who have deceived the US government, the American people, and the media for, quote, decades. I can show you this email from this senior CIA guy.
I don't trust the government. They don't trust us. And these entities, they're not trustworthy. So why would they come forward with something just because of a subpoena? And do I have the capabilities of just driving there today and knocking on their door and getting it? Some people would say yes, but I would say no, I would not.
Do you think that some of these people that are coming forth in these eyewitness testimonies coming up in the hearings are part of that group to run this narrative of this cover-up that's been going on so long?
I'm worried about that. I have no doubt after tomorrow, when we get a little more publicity, that I will get many calls from many people, and they will bring me what they think is evidence, and I think a lot of it is white flags. I think they're putting out information that is false. That's why I never come forward with hardly anything unless I've verified it, because I believe they've sent people into my office, into these committees, talking to congressmen to dissuade us or to send us down a rabbit hole to embarrass us. And I just want the answers. I want to know, you say they don't exist, but yet you're still spending tens of millions of dollars on it.
Mike Gold just recently said in the statements in this recent hearing that NASA is so transparent. Do you believe what he's telling us, or the public?
Look, I have a member of my team who works very closely with the administrator of NASA, and to my knowledge, Daniel Golden, back in the Clinton years, was read into this and was part of these operations, having come from SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation, which contracts on some of these classified projects that are being run illegally. I don't think 99% of NASA knows anything about this. There is a compartmented operation within NASA and contractors for NASA. I mean, we have a whistleblower from our original disclosure project where Ford Aerospace back in the day that was contracting with NASA was airbrushing and pixelating out images of UFOs from NASA imaging out in space so that the people who would be in the main NASA operations would never see those. So I don't think someone like Mr. Gold would have been read in, and I don't think his opinion on it is relevant, because you either know or you don't know. And we have whistleblowers who've worked in compartmented operations with NASA, but those are not necessarily known by all the administrators or most of the people. And this theme keeps coming up. If people don't understand what really tight compartmentalization is like, and when you cross over into an unsanctioned or illegal operation, it's very tight. And so, when someone makes a sweeping statement like that, to me, it would indicate that they just don't understand the structure of operations around UFO, UAP secrecy.
And we will hear testimony today concerning recent revelations about a purportedly secret UAP program whose existence and findings may have been improperly withheld from Congress. And we are all reading it in real time now, and Mr. Burchett will enter it into the record, but 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
A project like Immaculate Constellation is just a code word special access project, of which there are thousands, and those are routinely used when it's a compartmented or secret operation or top secret. And it was gathering information about encounters and what have you, and they put those into this Immaculate Constellation system. So now, the point I think that witness was making, which is a very ordinary point, and I don't really know why it was even discussed, is that those are not being reported back to Congress and they're not being reported back to the White House. This is the whole problem. You have a very huge government bureaucracy, and in that you can hide operations that aren't accountable to the people or the Congress or to the president. And I think if I can comment here, one of the big disappointments, I'm hearing from a lot of my internal whistleblowers that have not come forward yet about these hearings, is that, one of them said, very bluntly, he's a military guy, and he said it's just like a fart in a church, went over like a fart in a church. And what he meant by that was that it was such a nothing burger, and it was all information that was very superficial. And you had someone who's a known disinformation agent there, Luis Elizondo, making comments like, I can't answer that, and I'd have to be in a skiff, which is totally not true.
Are you read into secret UAP crash retrieval programs?
We would have to have a conversation in a closed session, ma'am. I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals.
Because that would presuppose that these operations that he might know about, which I don't think he does, would in fact be covered under National Security Act provisions that they should only be disclosed in a skiff. But that is a profound misunderstanding. This is the big problem with congressional approach to this. Because the projects themselves are illegal, you don't afford them the status of a legal top secret program, right? So that's sort of a sleight of hand happening by people like Elizondo and others. And they know better. They know that if in fact your chairs of the Senate Intelligence and an Armed Services Committee and the President and people who are supposed to be read in on something really sensitive don't know. It is, by definition, an illegal operation. Therefore, it doesn't need a SCIF. It doesn't need, in fact, it's like affording, here's what it's like. It's like affording the mafia a SCIF privilege because someone exposing the mafia could only talk about that in a SCIF because it's, but it's an illegal and criminal operation. It isn't worthy of a SCIF. So I've been telling Mr. Burchett and Ms. Luna and Ms. Moskowitz and other members of Congress that that's a completely wrong approach because it's missing the fundamental basis of the problem. And the fundamental basis of the problem is that in the late 50s, these projects and operations went off the reservation of constitutional legality and then went off on their own. And therefore, they've been a criminal enterprise, frankly, since the late 1950s. And to my knowledge, there's been no period of time between the late 50s and now where these projects have had proper oversight from either the executive branch, meaning the president, or Congress. And for that reason, they can't then wrap themselves in the cover of a top secret operation. You can't have it both ways, right? You're either on the side of the law or you're not. And if not, which we can prove they are, you strip them of all that cover. So that's the first thing that the president, incoming president, and the Congress should learn and do.
Tim Burchett just made a statement a few moments ago saying that he's looking over his shoulder now and he's afraid that maybe his car might explode, like somebody might be, attempting on his life. How dangerous are these congressmen that are pushing it? How dangerous are the witnesses to come forward in this time, at this moment in time?
Well, it is very dangerous, and of course, I've seen that, experienced it firsthand, as you know. But I'm not sure that someone like Mr. Burchett, or so far they're not digging into this at a level that would be a threat. Now, when I spoke to him a few months ago, if he had gotten subpoena power, where you would then be subpoenaing people who we can point out are involved directly, very deeply in these operations, we have them. Maybe. But this beggars the question, and we've been asking since the early 90s that there should be witness protection as well as serious security around them. Now here's some news. There's a law enforcement special access project that I've been working with that has just informed me that they can extend protection and immunity to witnesses. So anyone who would have a concern like that should contact me, and we'll put them in that bubble, right? And that is the people who are the operators, the special operators in there, are people who have been Green Beret Special Forces guys, but now they're working under a law enforcement domestic special access project that's top secret, special compartment information. And they are there to get to the bottom of this, but they can now extend, like if someone comes forward and they know they were involved in some illegal operations, they can extend immunity and they can extend protection. So that is a very big development that I don't believe the people in Congress are aware of. But of course, it's always a dramatic thing. Could someone be killed doing this? Yes, a lot of people have been killed doing what we're doing. And most of the people know that. And I have just heard recently from a senior official who had been the sort of right hand for Senate intelligence for Marco Rubio, who looks like he'll be the Secretary of State, that he didn't want to push too far on this because he was literally terrified of the CIA, that there were compartmented operations in there that could make a lot of problems for him or endanger him. But when you hear something like that, this is why the president, as well as Congress, need to leapfrog over this kind of slow roll, misdirect disclosure effort and really get to the conclusion that these are criminal operations. They should be treated that way. They should be rounded up, arrested, tried for treason, or what we had written in the Senate intelligence bill that was passed by Senate and then gutted by some operatives in the Congress, have a period of amnesty, because we have, or safe harbor. And that was 6 months, right? That was going to be provided. That wasn't passed. It was taken out of the bill. Now, the incoming president can do that. And this special access project on its own, because it's a law enforcement entity, can extend immunity, right? But standing up enough resources for the kind of security we're talking about. I've done this naked with no security from the government, and all my whistleblowers are in that bag situation, which creates a big problem, because if you're going to provide that, you also have to back it up with funding. And that funding needs to come out of an executive order or a congressional act, one of those two. It can come either way. Now, the Congress, when they were proposing to move this forward last year, about a year ago, when the National Defense Authorization Act was gutted in the reconciliation between the Senate and the House, that all those provisions were taken out, right? Including this amnesty period. They called it safe harbor, same thing. I think now, since there are people in Congress who block those initiatives, and we know who they are, by the way. You know, there are people like McConnell and Congressman Rogers of the House Armed Services and Congressman Turner of the House Intelligence Committee. We know who the people were who stepped in and gutted that Senate bill that passed overwhelmingly, right? And the provision I'm talking about unanimously passed out of the Senate Intelligence Committee, because I was involved in reviewing the language of it with some of those people. So I think that at this point it may fall on the shoulders of the incoming president to learn enough about this to issue the correct executive orders to provide that kind of protection. And also, if someone has a reason to be concerned like that, then that person, there should be surveillance around that person and see if there is any threat, and whatever that threat is, those people are rounded up and arrested immediately. For example, last year I had the former chairman of a large corporation, household name in America, who knew of some compartmented operation at that company dealing with this issue. He wanted to come forward. Immediately, there were people who approached him and said, you know, your children and your grandchildren, your whole family might be killed if you do this. It was a direct threat. And so he backed off from coming forward. And so someone like that who's extreme, and he has documents, he has schematics of the designs of these craft and everything. Those people need to be very rigorously protected. And also then, even if they're afraid to come forward, they should be either subpoenaed or, in law enforcement, taken in and interrogated. And you cannot lie to a federal officer, right, without it being a felony. So we know who these people are. I've got 762 of them in my archive.
So if you had the choice and you were the head of this hearing, who would be your first eyewitness that you would call?
Oh, I don't know. I've talked to so many of them. I'd be really hesitant to call any of them, because a lot of people are afraid of being humiliated. I've had some personal friends of mine that have had sightings back in the 50s. One was a fella I know that was in the Navy at the time, and it was a pretty compelling story. And I feel like if somebody like that would be excellent, because they're just a good old boy, so to speak, that was serving his country and was told to keep his mouth shut, or he would face going to federal penitentiary for the rest of his life.
All this has been illegal since 1956. It doesn't fall under the Constitution. If the president and the Congress are being held from this information, they have the right to come forward, because there is no legal recourse to tell them towards them, because it's all an illegal operation. So people shouldn't be afraid of coming forward at this point.
That sounds good, but you talk to the pilots who are pulled off the flight line, who are supposedly debriefed, but they're really interrogated for hours on end. They have a mark on their records, and again, they're pulled off the flight line where they're not flying for a while. They'll have a psychological examination and things like that, and that usually dissuades pilots. You hear them all the time, airline pilots saying they saw something but are afraid to come forward because, again, they don't want to have to go through all the hassle.
There are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics with what is described as non-human genetic material, potentially for the enhancement of human capabilities, hybrids. Are any of you familiar with that? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
I am not, ma'am.
I'm not. No, ma'am.
What do they mean about biologics and hybrid engineering of humans?
Well, the whole question about the spectrum, let's call it, of covert operations dealing with this subject runs the gamut from genetic and biological to, very advanced technologies. It's just called AT at Lockheed or, Northrop Grumman. But the genetic part of it, we disclosed this in the 90s. What she's talking about is that they have taken material, genetic material, and created, and where she's confused, they've created the creatures that look like aliens that aren't, that have been involved in abductions, but also in some special operations and in deception. So this gets into a very deep end of the pond of how do you set up a believable false flag and operations that looks like it's alien when it isn't. Now, I said back in the 90s that the first cloned mammal or higher life form was not Dolly the sheep in Scotland a few decades ago. Those programs have been going on since the 60s, 70s, 80s in these covert programs dealing with this issue. And very high tech. Now the result of it, some people have called these a man who worked in a facility in the United Kingdom at Peacemoor Air Force Base. They were called program life forms. So they are these sort of like creatures. They're not human and they're not extraterrestrial, but they're man-made, and they pass very, very well as an alien. Now, fast forward to the use of those on things that look like a UFO, right? And these can be circular or octagonal or triangular aircraft that are anti-grav, and everyone who would see one, including the president and members of Congress, that's an alien craft. Well, it's not. It came out of the Lockheed Skunk Works or Raytheon or Northrop, and on board some of them in certain operations are these fake aliens that engage in these abductions and mutilations. And this is the core of the whole scam, is a long-term psychological warfare program to convince people there's a threat from outer space. That's what Werner von Braun said. The guy who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler on his deathbed said that to Carol Rosin and warned that this is where we were going with this. So here's the big problem. There's a truthful disclosure that unpacks all the deception, and then there's the fake disclosure like you saw this week up on Capitol Hill. All right. And the fake disclosure is actually engineered to bring the subject out, but within the context of it being a threat. Well, the only threat, I mean, if they were extraterrestrial threat, we'd be done. The only real threat is from this illegal covert organization that have technologies thousands of years more advanced than the mainstream government military have, but also have these other technologies, genetic, electromagnetic warfare devices that affect consciousness and what have you, kind of like the Havana syndrome, but much more advanced. So you have a group of unsupervised people that have this whole constellation of technologies that are being used in malicious ways. And they're clearly illegal. And this is why this has to get unwound and stood down. Very, very important. And we haven't begun to scratch the surface of what the real threat is. Because the real threat consists of two other things. One is that that organization has had the ability since the 60s to hit a button and simulate an alien attack on the planet using these technologies. And it would trick everyone at the Pentagon, the White House, and the Congress, because they don't know much about this subject.
Serious questions tonight amid a growing number of drone sightings in the Northeast after weeks of mysterious drones.
The FBI says it's investigating a series of possible drone flights. People on the ground across central Jersey have reported them over the past several days.
The drones have been described as larger than what a hobbyist might fly.
They made kind of a low hum, similar to what you would expect from a plane, a smaller plane.
Some of the drones have been spotted close to a military installation and President-elect Trump's Bedminster Golf Club, where he frequently stays.
What's going on with these drones? Everybody wants to get your opinion.
They are now launching what we had predicted in the late 1990s, and that is a series of diversionary false flag events to confuse the public and the politicians and the Pentagon.
Tonight, the Pentagon striking down unverified claims made by one lawmaker that Iran is behind those drones.
Our initial assessment here is that these are not
drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary?
The drones are a predictable launch of a diversionary and a confusing event. They're certainly not extraterrestrial or NHI. The pop culture now is non-human intelligence.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense.
And this is a problem because there's been no serious inquiry in the Congress or at the White House involving this. That's what we're going to hand off to the incoming president. It's what I've handed off to members of Congress, but they don't have any full-time staff to study it. So it goes, they don't have time to do a deep dive. So you really have to have a select committee in the Congress and a special office in the White House to really master all this information and unpack it, and then take the action to stand down these malicious programs. And that is going to be a very heavy lift and a very dangerous operation. The other part of this are things that they can do to cause and induce all kinds of geophysical changes. And those technologies are real. This one, the NOC, as I call him, the non-official cover who's inside these black projects, I had known about, and he confirmed a program where they were able, these covert programs using these advanced technologies, were able to move an asteroid that was in a position from the sun, so it wouldn't be seen soon enough, that would skim over the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, that would cause massive tsunamis and wipe out the coastlines all around the world. And the ET civilizations intercepted this and avoided that catastrophe. So when you think of the psychotic level of people in these covert programs who have these kind of powerful technologies that no one at NASA or JPL know about, and the president doesn't know about, that is an existential threat to humanity and to the earth. And they have got to be reined in by the rule of law. But it's going to take some really courageous people, whether it's the president. So far, there's no one who's really been ready to run with this in the Congress on a deep way, a meaningful way. But maybe the incoming president will. If not, asymmetric disclosure will happen, where we'll have to have a band of brothers and sisters who do this unilaterally.
But then you add in the fact that people have died, and now they've turned it over to private entities, quasi-government corporations that have been created and that have profited off this knowledge, and you'll never be able to get to it because the line is clearly broken by someone dead. So the only way you're going to get to it is somebody at that executive level that says enough is enough, cut the money off, bring these people in, let's go.
What's it going to take to expose all of this?
It is going to have to be an asymmetric disclosure where people come forward with the proof of these materials and operations, and those are disclosed not into the black hole of secrecy at the Pentagon, right, or some skiff. It's disclosed to the people.
News Nation working to uncover the mystery in our skies, revealing brand new video of an alleged UFO retrieval. Take a look at your screen. Footage that was never before seen until last night's special report, going viral today. But now this decorated Air Force veteran says he knows it's true because he was a part of it. The whistleblower claiming he was contracted as a helicopter pilot to retrieve all kinds of crashed craft. He says some of non-human origin.
And President Trump has said on day one, we will get a report on the drones.
At some point, will you use your powers of the presidency to tell Americans who are concerned about drones?
Yeah,
a few weeks ago,
yeah.
what exactly
I will.
Can you tell us now?
In fact, I'd like to know because I just got here.
What do you think?
I just came here. I've been here for what, 15 minutes now. I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was, Susie? Okay? Yeah, why don't we find out? Immediately.
We want our leaders to do something. We're supposed to be in a democracy, right? And there's a window for us to do this while these programs are still under an illegal operating status. Now, if they were to cross into legal oversight by the Congress and the President, you couldn't do this. But see, this is the trap they've set for themselves in this cabal of sociopaths running these covert programs. They set their own trap by going illegal. Now they have no cover. So a group like ours, the Disclosure Project, and these defectors can do it legally with no criminal and no national security violations, because those programs are being run illegally. They don't have the cover of national security. So there's a window open here to move through.